Hi, I'm Joe Sawyer, the Superintendent of the Shrewsbury Public Schools. I'm recording this show on Friday afternoon, April 30th, 2021, with the assistance of Mark Serra, the Executive Director of the Shrewsbury Media Connection. Today I'd like to share some great news about our schools. I'd like to answer some frequently asked questions about our budget situation and provide some information about the May 4th annual town election. First, I want to let you know that the phased return of full-time in-person learning from our elementary and middle schools has gone exceptionally well, and we're looking forward to welcoming back all of our high school students who are returning for in-person learning this coming Monday. There has been a really lot of complex planning to schedule and adjust schedules on the part of our administrators. There's been a lot of adjustments made by our educators to adjust the curriculum and the alignment of our instructional program as we move from the staggered hybrid schedule to this full-day, 5-day-a-week in-person schedule. And certainly a lot of hard work by our custodians and our public buildings department to make sure that all of the furniture that was rearranged, the new furniture we had to add in order to have 6-foot distancing in our cafeterias with more students there, putting some out in tents at certain schools. It's been a really heavy logistical lift, and people have really worked hard, and they've made it very successful so far. It's been very, very gratifying for me to visit schools and to see how excited and positive our students and our staff have been about this major step in more of a return to normalcy in our schools. So I certainly appreciate all the hard work that's happened on behalf of our staff, the flexibility and patience that our students and families have showed during this transition. We're really looking forward to a strong finish to the school year. I also want to share another piece of really positive information, which is that we just received the new annual rankings that U.S. News and World Report puts out, ranking high schools across the United States. They ranked over 17,800 high schools, and it's really an honor that Shrewsbury High School is ranked overall in the top 6% of all those high schools. And then further this year are ranked actually in the top 0.1% of all high schools in America when it comes to STEM education, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. These extremely high rankings of Shrewsbury High School are a tribute not only to our outstanding high school faculty and support staff and program, but also to all of our educators starting at preschool right through elementary and middle school and the high school. We just can't get results that are that strong without those foundational skills being taught from our students' youngest ages. And certainly the quality of the program we've been able to provide, again, has put Shrewsbury in an extremely favorable light when it comes to how well our students perform compared to those across the entire nation. So congratulations, and that's something that all of us in our community should be very proud of. Today I also wanted to take the opportunity to provide some additional information about our budget situation next year and about what the vote on May 4th, the operational override vote, means for our schools. In terms of the override itself, we know, and I've said several times over the past few months, that we are unfortunately here in our community facing what I would call an education emergency. That's not only because of the very, very significant disruption that's occurred to our schools because of the pandemic that began a bit over a year ago, but also because of the ongoing budget crisis our community faces in terms of funding local government, including our schools. I'm very pleased that the Board of Selectmen, the school committee, and the finance committee have unanimously supported an operational override question at the annual town election on May 4th that will generate $9.5 million more of revenue for our community that can be utilized for school funding as well as funding municipal departments and putting money aside in a stabilization account so that the commitment that the Board of Selectmen and School Committee jointly made not to request any additional overrides for a minimum of 4 years and hopefully longer can be made. It would bring incredible stability to our municipal and school budgets. It's really something that is really groundbreaking in our community. I think that the plan that Town Manager Kevin Mizikar has put forward is really very thoughtful and a very fiscally prudent way to approach the financing of local government so that we can have that stability, which we haven't had in recent years. A yes vote on May 4th. As far as the schools, it maintains our current level of staffing and programming. It allows us to add the staff necessary to open the new Beal School. It will provide full-day tuition-free kindergarten to all. That was promised when we asked the community to support the construction of the new Beal School. And it also allows us to add back 4 teaching positions that we cut this year, 2 in 5th grade at Sherwood Middle School and 2 at Shrewsbury High School. Just to remind everyone, we actually cut 30 positions, just about 30 positions this current school year, almost $2 million in cuts. And those cuts actually would have been even more significant if it hadn't been for some of the financial sacrifices our staff made, which I'll speak to in a bit. If we do not get a positive outcome, if it's a no vote on May 4th, what the community can expect is that we're going to need to cut probably close to 48 or more positions in our schools. It means that we will not be able to open the new Beal School as planned. There'll be significant increases to class sizes. We'll have to reduce our special subject programming in grades K through 8. And essentially our high school students will not be able to have some of the courses that they're counting on, whether those are elective courses, advanced placement, so-called AP courses, because we just won't have enough teachers. 12 teachers at the high school would be included in that reduction plan that we have currently, because with a no vote, we're facing about a $4.5 million gap between what we need and what would be available in terms of local funding. This really is a critical time for our students to have our support coming out of the pandemic, and this is certainly not the time to be reducing resources. One additional cut we would need to make is we would need to close all of our elementary media library centers in all of our elementary schools because we'd be reducing the media aides positions would be cut, and the one remaining library media specialist at the elementary level would be cut. So those are just a few examples. We'd be cutting back also on support staff, paraprofessionals who support our students' learning, particularly at the elementary level. So really, from my perspective, it's a disastrous situation if we don't have adequate funding next year. And I really am hoping that the community will be signaling their confidence in what we need to do educationally with a yes vote on May 4th. I have received some different questions over the last several weeks that people have been asking about the override and its impact and about our schools. So I want to go over a few of those questions here to make sure you, who may be voting on Tuesday, excuse me, have the information you need to make an informed decision. First off, in talking about Beal School, there have been a question about people saying, well, we've already voted to build that school. I've heard it's on time and it's under budget. Why wouldn't you be able to open the school as planned? And it's important to remember that the vote a few years ago to construct Beal School provided the funding to do just that, for the construction of the building itself. Those funds cannot be used by law to actually fund staffing for the school. And if you recall, the reason we're building this large school to replace the small Beal School that's currently in the center of town is to finally solve the problem of overcrowding at all of our elementary schools that's been going on for years. Providing full-day kindergarten. So we need to add additional staff in order to make sure that that school can function as all of our elementary schools go to a kindergarten through grade 4 model when the new school opens. But the money for the construction of the school cannot fund the ongoing staffing costs. That has to come from our operational budget. Another question that I've received is that some people have heard, and maybe if they haven't been in town for some time, that the school department in the past has suggested that certain cuts might need to be made, and then those cuts never really happen. That people, quote, always find the money. And that's something that really is a myth. There have been numerous years during my career in Shrewsbury, going on 24 years now, where the school department has had to make actual cuts, laid people off, reduced positions. Some of those positions were restored in the override in 2014, but many were not. And this year alone, as I mentioned earlier, we cut almost 30 positions out of our program. So we've had to make very significant cuts in the past, and the cuts that we're saying would need to happen for next year, depending on the ultimate size of the budget gap, which right now is about $4.5 million, would require sizable reductions in staffing that would affect programming and class size in our schools. Another question I've been getting, excuse me, is asking whether or not during this very difficult budget year when we made all these cuts, did the school department staff make any financial sacrifices themselves as far as their own compensation? And the answer to that is yes. Our teachers union, which represents all of our professional educators, along with our assistant principals union, both agreed to reduce the contractual raises that they were due as part of the contractual settlements that are in effect right now by half this year. Additionally, our secretaries, IT support staff, all of our administrators, principals, central office administrators, all took compensation freezes this year. Altogether, that totaled over $1 million that otherwise would have had to been cut out of the program. And I certainly appreciate the personal sacrifices that our employees made in order to help us not have to reduce even more this year, especially given the circumstances we were under with the pandemic. Sort of along those lines as well, a question that I get and that's been out there is it true that Shrewsbury spends much more than other districts on our school administration? The answer to that is a resounding no. Statistically, and these facts are all available on our website and on the State Department of Education website, when it comes to spending on education, among all the public school districts in the state, 320 of them, we're actually ranked 301st in terms of the amount of spending per pupil on administration. That puts us in the bottom 6% in the state. So it certainly is not factual that somehow we're spending a lot of money on administration and somehow that's the cause of our budget gap. It's a very small proportion of our budget in the first place, and compared to other districts, it is very much at the bottom of the rankings in the state. Some people have asked about central office positions in particular. Are we top heavy when it comes to our central office administration? And other than during COVID, like many, I probably became a little more top heavy myself than I would have liked. In terms of the numbers of positions, we actually have fewer than typical districts our size. And that's based on a study that the UMass Boston Collins Center did for us a couple of years ago. It might surprise a lot of people to know that we're actually the 27th largest school district in the state. And when you take the cities out, we're actually the 5th largest non-city district in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. That puts us in the top 2% of size for suburban town non-city districts. And of course, all districts have some functions where you have central office administrators who are overseeing curriculum and instruction, human resources, finance and operations, special education, and those are positions we have here in Shrewsbury that are very typical. They're called different things in different districts. We call our positions assistant superintendents, which is typically the case in larger districts. But again, the facts do not support the idea that we're overspending on administration and therefore somehow that's the cause of our budget deficit. In addition, one thing that's been asked a bit is about the federal funding that school districts have been receiving and communities have been receiving as a result of various federal stimulus or COVID bills, or more recently, the American Rescue Act. And the fact is we have received substantial funds from those pieces, but those funds are restricted to use for coronavirus needs, whether that's our pooled surveillance testing of students and staff, all the new furniture we had to buy to be able to physically distance students and staff and bring students back in person, whether that is the enhanced cleaning, the positions we hired to be able to provide simultaneously an all-remote program at the same time as an in-person program, which we still have to provide for the rest of the school year. So it certainly is true that we've received federal funding, but that federal funding cannot be used for our ongoing operations. There may be some that the town side receives and the municipal government that might be able to reduce the tax levy a bit to be used for revenue replacement. And I know the selectmen have pledged to do that where they can. But again, these funds that are being received by the town and by the school district directly, unfortunately can't be used to supplant the kinds of funds that are used on a year-over-year basis to provide support for our schools. So I think it's important for people to understand that. Another piece I think is really critically important, and it's something to do with our community, and that's the fact that right now we enjoy, over the last couple of years, a AAA bond rating. And because we have that highest bond rating, that means that the borrowing costs for projects such as the new Beale School, the new police station, and also I know that Mr. Mizikar, the time manager, just essentially refinanced the Sherwood bond issue to pay for the relatively new Sherwood Middle School. That is saving us literally millions of dollars in borrowing costs. It's essentially the same as a credit rating for us as individuals. If you have a high credit rating, you get lower interest rates on your loans. And so maintaining that AAA bond rating is critically important. And the bond rating agencies want to see financial stability in the community and actually look upon it favorably when communities are willing to increase the amount they're paying through their local taxes to make sure that their community is receiving that kind of stability and can maintain its programming. So maintaining that AAA bond rating is also critically important. And another question that I've been getting is about, if my children are done going through school, how does this affect me? And I think that, the first clear answer to that is it affects your property value. The property values in our community are robust. And we know that a major factor for that is the stability of town government and also the quality of the school district. And so if we continue to diminish our program with more cuts, that is going to have a negative effect on property value. It certainly has an effect on the quality of life in the community when our students are engaged, our young people are engaged positively with educational programming and receiving the kinds of supports that they need. That's another really critical element of why it's important for communities to support strong schools. But I would also add that certainly the education of the young people in the community is the responsibility of the entire community. I've had the good fortune to raise my family here. I've been living in Shrewsbury for 24 years. My oldest is a freshman in college now. I also have a junior in high school and an 8th grader. And if I tally up the bill of what it cost the community to put my 3 daughters through the Shrewsbury Public Schools from kindergarten through grade 12, that is a bill that far surpasses any real estate taxes that I've paid to the town. And certainly when that real estate tax bill is roughly, you can think about half of that probably goes to support our schools directly, the other half for various elements of town government and supporting town buildings. Whenever our kids go through the schools, the entire community is contributing to the financial support for them to get that education. So I certainly would ask all of our community, whether you have children in school or not, whether your children have finished, to think about this as turning back and offering your hand to the next person coming up the hill behind you. This is really what communities do, and that's what communities are about. So I think that it benefits everyone, and certainly if any of us who have had the benefit of having our children go through school hopefully feel positively about making sure that the next generation of students has at least the quality that they've had. And of course, we're always trying to improve upon that over time. So with that, I hope that helps answering some questions people have had about the budget. Coming up, actually, in the coming week or so, we have National Principals Day on May 1st. We have National Teachers Appreciation Day on May 4th. Not long after that, on May 12th, I believe, is National School Nurse Appreciation Day. And boy, have they done incredible work this year with handling everything related to COVID. I know National, what they call School Lunch Heroes Day to honor our cafeteria staff is next Friday. And certainly one way I think that our community could really significantly honor the incredible work that these educators and support staff have done, our school leaders have done over the past year, would be to give them the resources they need to do the job well. When they have resources, we've proven, just like that incredibly high ranking of Shrewsbury High School nationally, when we have the tools to do the job, we are able to do some really remarkable things for our students' education. But we need those resources. So I really do hope that our community will support the operational override on May 4th. The polls will be open at the usual voting places out wherever your precinct votes on Tuesday, starting at 7 a.m. and closing at 8 p.m. You can still get an absentee ballot up until noon on Monday, May 3rd. And if you have already received a ballot through the mail for early voting, you can drop that off at either the town clerk's office or in the red, white, and blue mailbox in front of the town hall on 100 Maple Avenue, anytime up through May 4th at 8 p.m. Just a reminder that all ballots have to be received by 8 o'clock on May 4th in order to count in the election. So regardless of what your opinion might be, the right to vote in a democratic society is truly precious. And I do hope that everyone who has that right will come out and have their voice heard in making this major decision about the future of our town. As your superintendent and as a resident of our community for almost 25 years now, I really do believe that a yes vote on the operational override will provide our community with the financial stability it needs, and it will provide the school and municipal services that our residents deserve, especially the 6,000 plus of our youngest residents who rely on us to provide them with the kind of excellent education that they need in order to be successful for their futures and to maintain the really high quality of life that we've come to enjoy and know here in Shrewsbury. So thank you very much for tuning in. I appreciate you watching. Please get out and vote, and thank you so much for the support of the Shrewsbury Public Schools.